Hi, I'm Jeremy Warren with CBC News in Saskatoon, here at City Hall with Cynthia Block, joining us to talk about the year that was and the year that's coming up. Thank you for joining us, Mayor Block.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
First question, what was your first decision as mayor?
Oh, gosh, I wasn't expecting that question. First decision as mayor, well, I think it was probably budget. I mean, we might have had one in between that, but I think that budget was the main big thing coming up right on the heels of the election. We were inaugurated and then right into the budget process. So I guess it was trying to figure out a way to get a consensus from our new colleagues. And that was pretty exciting for me that I was able to get the budget over the finish line with unanimous support and still manage to add a little money to the snow and ice budget.
Yeah, and that money came in handy because I guess another big thing the city did was deciding to clear residential streets and shave the ruts. Kind of came out of nowhere. Was that your doing, or who made that decision?
Well, like that rut service is always there, but the going in and plowing every single street isn't. But we don't have a level of service that we articulate other than here's what we budget, and they're the priority roads, and some service inside residential neighborhoods when it's required, and then that full snow response and a big emergency response. And so one of them is 1.5 million, the other one is 20 million in terms of cost. So this was not that. So we didn't remove the snow. And I know that that is going to make the significant difference in terms of the overall budgeting for this. So fingers crossed we don't get too much more snow.
Yeah, I haven't checked the forecast. I don't know what's coming, but we'll see. The transition from city councillor to mayor, because you were a two-term councillor, correct?
Yes.
How has that transition been for you?
I love my job, not to be confused with easy, but I expected that. I've been a student of the mayor's office for 8 years, watching how Charlie Clark conducted himself, the way he managed files, and how he interacted with his chief of staff, and how she was also very instrumental in how work got done. So that's what I've learned. And really, I've been a part of those files for 8 years. It's, whether it's homelessness, community safety, building better roads, sidewalks, all of the basic things that the folks are really concerned about and asking us to address are files that I've been working on for 8 years. So I feel that transition has been pretty smooth. I'm very grateful for amazing staff, both in the mayor's office and at City Hall, that are helping to support that transition. But it was not as big a leap as folks might think. The bigger leap was when you actually start as a city councillor. It's so much more than people can even possibly imagine. Drinking water out of the fire hose constantly. And I understand that that's true of any newly elected person. I'm learning talking to the new folks at the legislature and also my new colleagues at City Hall.
What advice did you give the new city councillors?
Well, the advice really needs to be to pace yourself and to not worry about the questions that you're asking, because you can't know what you don't know, and nobody expects you to. When you have been around City Hall long enough, you know that there's just so much to learn and understand. So many different departments, so many important issues on every single business line of the city, that it's impossible to know all of that until it's literally your job every day.
What is it like behind the scenes? Like the average voter, even the media, we see you at city council and press conferences and that sort of thing. What's it like behind the scenes, day to day for you? You finalized your team here, right, and everything. So what's it like day to day for your job?
Well, it varies every single day, and that I think is one of the great things about the job. But you're going in a million different directions. I'm doing an interview with you. I already did a radio interview this morning, and then you're off to say Meewasin or the police commission, or you're meeting with the business community, or it's just a constant, or you have to do an address at an event. So, and all the prep time that it takes, guess what? Most of the time I don't get time for that. So I'm learning to think on my feet better and just try to be in the moment. And in a strange way, I feel that's a good thing. That, when I was a city councillor, I would, endlessly worry about what I was going to say. But when you have met and have been interacting with your community for a long time, and then you can be more in the moment. So when you say, hang out with the elders at St. George Hall, and they want to, like, that happened just this past weekend, and they gave me a sash. Like, it was a really honorable moment. And I just went with how I was feeling and was grateful, and was one of actually the greatest pieces of advice that I've had in recent years is be where your feet are. And I think when you do that, I think that makes you more authentic and quite possibly a better leader.
Mm-hmm. You were a broadcast journalist for a few years locally here in Saskatoon. How throughout your years on city council now as mayor, how would you characterize the media coverage, how city council is covered, and is there anything you would like done differently?
Back when I first started, there was a lot more media and a lot more attention to civic meetings. But we know that there's been a lot of cutbacks in the media. And I'm a strong believer in local journalism. I think it matters deeply to our democracy. And I, hope that you guys continue to resource it the best you can to make sure that people understand the decisions that we're making at City Hall. And that's not just like reporting what the decisions are. It's being able to have the time to read and listen to the debate, and so that you can explain how those decisions were made. I think everyone's doing the best job they can under the circumstances, and I'm interested to how the mayor's office or how city council can actually help the media as well. Like, how might we be able to teach and learn each other's jobs better so you get a leg up in terms of the amount of time it takes you to research an agenda, as an example. How could we be a support to that? Mm-hmm. And can I tell you one fun fact?
Yeah, please.
On election night, you guys were at our campaign office, and after they announced that I had won, we had the reaction in the room, and we immediately all got in our vehicles and came down to City Hall to do an official press conference. And I arrived just behind the CBC truck, and I got out and I started walking to City Hall, and then I stopped and I'm like, would you like us to slow down? Yes, I would. But that's an easy thing to do, right? When you realize that, well, they probably want the shot of you walking in. And I think it's helpful that we can, support our local democracy together by just being considerate and finding new ways to work together.
Yeah. I would like it if I could just call up any city employee again and just chat with them for an interview instead of going through comms every time I just need a clarification. Can I register that complaint with you right now? Or
Yeah,
can we,
I'll,
okay.
I'll take it up with the comms folks.
That's right.
I wonder why that is. That seems like an extra layer that just takes up too much time.
Oh, I think that's just how comms are these days. It's just got to get the stranglehold on, the message, right? I don't know.
Well, I have not personally had those kinds of conversations with our staff.
Yeah.
I know they work hard, but I guess I'd also like to understand, like, just that then delay, right? Because you might not get the comms person right away, and then you're waiting for them to call you back, and then they have to contact whoever the employee is, and then the employee, so it just takes way longer.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, I think we can work on that.
Oh, yeah, I was just kidding, but if you can, that would be awesome. Yeah, it was just, because you're reading a city hall report and, going to city council, and you're just like, hey, I just need somebody to explain this paragraph. I don't need to go through a whole comms thing. I just need the person who knows to tell me. That's all. Yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
It sounds reasonable.
But you know what? Like everything at City Hall, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room with residents and went, that totally makes sense to me. I'm going to go and fight that, and we're going to win, and it's going to be great. And then you go, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It turns out that people who work at City Hall are extraordinarily bright and hardworking. And I mean, like any place, I'm sure these are not universal truths. But I think if residents knew the level of education and dedication and commitment and passion so many of the folks that work at City Hall have, we would be very proud of the representation and the value that we're getting for the money that we pay in our taxes.
Moving on to some issues here. This week we saw, maybe it was last week, Saskatoon Tribal Chief Mark Arcand talking about City Council's plans for shelters and the encampment response plan, and he seemed pretty frustrated with the movement and this, what he said was slow movement or no decisions being made from City Council on that. What was your reaction to those comments from Chief Arcand?
I think I'm not quite understanding what that means. Like, the decisions that were made were based on the criteria and the limitations of how those dollars were allowed to be used. Like cities across the country that are going directly to the federal government to help support their overall homelessness strategy. We are choosing primarily a housing response, a supportive housing opportunity, which you're right, that doesn't help us today. But that is the requirement of the funding. We don't get to choose how those dollars are used entirely. We have some leeway, but they had to be for capital. They weren't for operations. Mm-hmm. And I think that operational component was addressed in how City Council dedicated additional resources to the warming centers in Saskatoon this winter. And, the points have been made by City Council that, this isn't the jurisdiction of your municipality. We are on the front lines of this crisis, but we don't have the tools to solve them alone. It would be like if we all of a sudden decided that it's our job to fix the hospital emergency room. That's not what our responsibility is. But when it's happening in our backyard, I think residents expect us to figure it out. And we need to work urgently with all orders of government, and that's happening. And I'm grateful for the response from the federal government to get dollars flowing into our city as quickly as possible. And we need to work urgently with the province. They need to understand that Saskatoon is a regional hub. We are facing an unequal amount of folks who are housed in our community compared to other cities of our size because of that regional piece, folks coming in from really all over the province, but a lot from the north. How do we manage that without a provincial partner who is willing to come to the table and fund it properly? And I've said this a long time, all through the campaign and before that unless or until people are safely housed, we're going to continue to struggle. I think we need to make available every single day places for people to sleep and make sure there's a roof over their head and an opportunity to transition out of homelessness, which is part of what those federal dollars will help us to do. And your municipality doesn't do it themselves. We collect those dollars, we put out an RFP, and the housing partners will do that work. We are a convener, and I'm very much looking forward to having further discussions with the province about accelerating the support to make sure that Saskatoon Tribal Council and others have the supports that they need to make sure that people are safe this winter.
Have you had conversations with the province yourself, lobbying on this issue since you were elected mayor?
I have. I've had an opportunity to meet with several of the ministers, including the new Minister of Social Services, and I will be doing a follow-up meeting as soon as possible. And
what were the tone of those discussions, if you can't tell me exactly what was said in there, but what was the sort of reaction, and did you leave the meeting feeling optimistic?
We had very good discussions with the Minister of Health, the Minister of Social Services, and the Minister of Housing. I was encouraged by those meetings, but in fairness to, for sure, the Minister of Social Services, the Honourable Terry Jensen. He is a brand new person to cabinet, and our conversation happened on the day of the throne speech. So I think that he was still drinking water out of the fire hose too, trying to figure out how does this new job look. And you know, the way I understand it right now is that the legislature is now sort of getting into a new phase of their new term, and you know, they're going to be ready to ramp up and have those discussions to start making some meaningful change.
This came up, I think, during the encampment response plan discussion at City Council. Somebody asked about what happens if there's a change in the federal government, because a lot of these housing programs and programs aimed at affordability or homelessness are federal dollars to these programs that a conservative leader has said he may or may not keep, I guess. So what happens if there is a change in the federal government with all these programs? Because a lot of these are federal dollars, right? So what happens then?
Well, I mean, I can't say for sure what will happen, but my understanding is that those are legally binding agreements by the federal government, regardless of who then becomes the new administration. The way that the Housing Accelerator Fund, for example, has been distributed means that, you know, we collect the money on a yearly basis, and we have to demonstrate that we're moving in the direction to achieve the targets that are required under the mandate of receiving those funds. And so that means a lot of money is committed and signed contracts happen in our city before that money actually comes to our municipality. You have to start planning, you have to send out RFPs before you actually get the money. So those are legally binding contracts as well. And I would very much hope that whoever forms any government would honor the work that is already underway that was approved by a previous administration.
You talked a lot about a task force to deal with homelessness and housing affordability. Those issues came up quite a bit. Can you explain what the task force will do and sort of what the makeup of this task force is?
Well, thank you for the question. I actually think that we need residents and businesses at the table, and I've been saying that for a long time. I think that the acceleration of the homelessness crisis is such that policymakers and service providers simply cannot keep pace, and I think it's frustrating for residents. They don't understand, like, why is there an encampment, you know, in the middle of Brevet Park? But there's encampments in every single neighborhood in our city, or there have been. We're working urgently to make sure people are safe and finding appropriate shelter at this point. But we've seen changes in our community based on how many people either can't afford housing, are otherwise down on their luck, have, you know, mental health or addiction issues. And I think residents are understandably, like, perplexed. It doesn't matter that this is happening in cities right across not just Canada, but really North America, I think even across the globe. Cities are struggling following the pandemic with an epidemic of homelessness, and we need to get in front of it. And I don't believe we can do that without having our community with us. And that means working directly with businesses and residents and populating that task force in a way that has, you know, some tentacles where you know, what I mean by that is that they can communicate more with larger groups of people so that we can start to teach and learn together about how we are going to get in front of it. I don't think that this is anymore a situation where only governments can solve, and the advocacy work needs to come from community. I don't really see that there's another way. In terms of how it will work, that is right now underway. And part of the reason that I took away it wasn't called a mayor's task force very quickly after the campaign began, I started to think, you know, if I'm noticing that this is the most urgent matter of our time, I'll bet you everyone else that's going to be on council is feeling the same way. They're hearing the same things from residents and businesses. And so I wanted to leave that open for it to be maybe something that we do as a council, not just out of the mayor's office. And I'll just say that we'll probably have more to say about that in the new year. I don't think it would be out of, I think it's still respectful to say that every single councillor has said that it is the most urgent matter that they think we need to address. And so I think we will be stronger as a council. I think we'll be doing a better job for residents if we figure out a way to bring forward a plan together.
You mentioned that more information in the new year. What else is coming up in the new year as far as sort of the major civic issues either you want to look at or get city council to look at? Like, what's sort of on the agenda for 2025?
That's a question I did not prepare for. So off the top of my head, I mean, homelessness has just been all-consuming. That's part of it. I want to make sure that we are creating a strong relationship with our business community so that we are getting on the same page and trying to make a plan about where we all want to be in 4 years, so that when we have budget or we talk about issues of community safety, that we're all on the same page. And I mean, that was my commitment in the campaign, and I think that that needs to be on the agenda right away in the new year, and also inclusive of figuring out what those community safety plans look like. We're seeing, some behaviors, obviously, social behaviors in our streets that people are concerned about, in neighborhoods and in business districts. And I don't think it's useful for every resident, every household, or every business to have to solve this alone. We should figure out what do best practices look like. Let's work with police. Let's figure out at least how we communicate in a better way to get access to safety resources in a more efficient way, so that businesses can focus on their priority, and also so residents can feel safe in their communities, knowing that we're doing this as a neighborhood. And so I'll be eager to get to work on those plans as well.
Just to look back at the campaign, is it fair to say that you and Vaughn Wyant are friends? Is that right?
I think that's a
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, yeah, because you've campaigned for him, or he's campaigned for you on past elections, right? Federally or provincially, correct?
I would say that might be a stretch, but I would say that we have been supportive of each other. Yes.
I mean, he did donate to your 2020 civic election campaign, I believe, right? So, yeah. So
I'll take your word.
Yeah,
for it.
that's what. I saw that. I think. So I'm just curious how that played out in the campaign, right? With you two being the front runners, I guess, the consensus front runners. How did that play out with you guys being somewhat friends, I guess?
It was weird. That's my honest answer. I felt that we were in it to win it, obviously, and I think that we, had a few moments in those debates that were probably uncomfortable for both of us. But I mean, when we decide that we need or that we want to represent our city, I mean, it's going to happen that you need to, let each other stand on each other's records, right? And I was totally willing to stand on mine. I think we were respectful. We were, hard-hitting sometimes, but I think it was respectful. And he sent me a very nice note after the election. I think there were a lot of ways that could have been, less than a healthy situation. But I actually think we did okay. I think we muddled our way through. It was uncomfortable at times, but, foundationally, I know him to be a good person. And, I wish him all the best. If it couldn't have been me, then I would have wished it would be him. So I guess that's maybe one of the reasons we're friends.
Yeah. There you go. Now we know.
That was a lot more information than I expected to talk about today. But
well, yeah, no, I mean, that was one of the interesting things was just like, people were just often asking, like, are they friends? Like, because, there were some connections in past campaigns and stuff. So I think people were just wondering about that sort of connection.
Yeah, I think we're just people that have been around the community for a long time, and so you get to know each other, and you end up being at many of the same social events together. And over time, you just get to know one another. And actually, probably the way that we got to be, friends is because his wife and my late husband were extremely good friends, and they loved watching football together. And Gordon and I were like, whatever.
You guys talk politics while they're talking football. You're like, strategize. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think we're coming close to the end here. Sort of a larger, broader question. What does Saskatoon look like at the end of your term, 2028?
People are safely housed. All people have a place to sleep every night. People can move around their neighborhoods and their kids go to the park and feel good about that. People are filled with hope and optimism because we've, surpassed the struggles of the post-pandemic era and crazy inflation and affordability and all of the rest of it. The temperature has calmed. Trust has been rebuilt between citizens and their elected leaders. I think that's pretty foundational to how we move forward. I am excited that in this term, I absolutely have confidence that we will be flipping the switch on the new bus rapid transit system. And that bus rapid transit system will be funded appropriately in a way that that system will be more reliable. We will have more buses. People will have more confidence in this new system. And I think more people will choose public transportation because it's going to be easy and reliable and less expensive. We have started to move forward to add density along those bus rapid transit corridors in a way that neighborhoods feel good about, because we're going to hopefully be able to incentivize right along those transit routes for mixed development, make it a more livable, walkable community, and that will deter people from wanting to build into the interior of neighborhoods. I don't think we're there yet, as in a time where we need to add a lot of density inside our character neighborhoods. I think that and also I think it's less expensive if we create infrastructure upgrades right along that corridor, rather than incentivizing places that are, say, 4 blocks away. Anyways, I'm getting into the weeds on which should have been a short answer, which you can edit.
No, yeah.
But it's, some of these pieces are really exciting to me, but I really feel the weight of leadership in a way that we need to get past an era of, people feeling not great about the future. And we have every reason to be confident that it's going to be great. We need to roll up our sleeves and work at these things together and work on the affordability issues and making sure that we're growing our city in the right way. And we need to make sure that we are getting people off the streets and safely housed.
Just quickly on the bus rapid transit, so what is the next steps coming in 2025 for that then? What's the marker?
So the whole system is already being built. I'm sure you've been out to Civic Ops to see what that initial one looks like. All of that underground infrastructure is now going in places right across the city. In fact, one of them, I think one of the stations is already up, I think. Somewhere on the east side, but I can't remember exactly where that is.
Possibly.
Maybe Preston Avenue? I can't remember. I haven't personally seen it. But people will start to be able to see what it's going to look like over the course of the next few years. And I believe it's 2027 that what we're supposed to have the whole system up and running. And in the interim, I think what I think is super important is that we are figuring out a way to get more buses more quickly. It's not just the overall costs and finding the funding for that. because we are now funded for the buses that we need for right now, but we can't get them quickly enough. The backlog still, again, pandemic related, supply chain issues, and crazy inflation is also making it tougher to let those dollars go as far as they once did. I've talked about this before, when a fire engine cost $800,000 in 2020, and today, actually in the summer, the cost was $1.5 million. I was told 2 weeks ago, it's now $2 million. $800,000 to $2 million. How do you not buy the fire engine? We need to find different ways to do our procurement. I think we need to find some economies of scale with other cities. That will be one of the things that I will hope to talk about in my first big city mayor's caucus.
Oh, interesting.
I believe it's end of January maybe. Yeah.
That's an interesting idea. Has that been done elsewhere? Like cities getting together to...
It's mostly my idea,
Yeah.
if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's just, I'm sure some cities do it, and if they don't, we should. I guess a little bit of this is teaching and learning, and hopefully I can learn from other municipalities how they're addressing this same issue. But if we all are trying to buy fire engines, it might make some sense to have some economies of scale on that. And I did actually talk to a manufacturer out of Winnipeg that was explaining to me how they figure out the various options that every single individual fire engine needs, and that's what makes it tough to do those pieces. And I disagree. Like if we need to go, say each of us wants to go buy a car and we want to buy the same car but we want different options, you still should be able to figure out some economies of scale there in terms of pricing. That's what I'm hoping for.
It's a fascinating idea. I think, home of the wheat pool, why wouldn't getting together work, right? Yeah.
Well, you got to work together. That's right.
What's a question that you've always wanted to be asked, but you never get to answer? Is there anything that you...
A question that I never get asked, and I wish somebody would ask me. Well, we could just talk about what the mayor thinks she needs to do for herself next year.
What does the mayor need to do for herself next year?
I so talked a big game prior to the campaign really heating up about needing to be a wise leader and making sure I was giving enough time in the day to walk my dog, do a bit of yoga. Well, that for sure did not happen. But I do think that wise leadership tries to have a few boundaries so that she doesn't, get so overspent that you're actually not doing a good job. You got to be where your feet are, and you got to take some time to, not just enjoy life, but to reflect. Some of my best problem solving happens when I'm walking. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times there's been a really spicy, sticky issue at City Hall, and I would just walk and walk and walk. And it's like at some point, it just flows in as opposed to using the part of your brain where it's super analytical. And I find that interesting. But yeah, I want to spend more time on Meewasin. And I, hope to have a little more family time in 2025.
How old are your kids now?
26 and 24.
Okay.
And one of them's out of the house. And the other one just learned in the last couple of weeks that she will have a full-time teaching contract next fall. So she's 0.5 right now, so she'll have so I'm excited that my 20-somethings may actually be gainfully employed and be able to leave the house.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, both time maybe? I don't know.
It's kind of a mix. It's a mixed thing for me because I love having my kids around. I love my son, but it was time for him to go. And we get along fantastic now. My daughter's a fantastic roommate. But for her, I think it's time that she finds her own way. And, mom's probably got to look at a condo because it's a lot taking care of a big house when you've got a big mayor job.
Yeah. What was their reaction when you were elected mayor?
Honestly, I think they're super proud. they put in a lot of time and effort on that campaign, and also made a lot of sacrifices, and dragged a lot of young people into the campaign, which was so energizing and exciting, because so much of my message is for them. I have been a city councillor that has always talked about having a wider angle lens and making sure that we aren't making short-sighted decisions only to have to spend more or redo it later. Like, it always costs more in the long run. So how are we making sure that our assets are well funded, that we don't have a sort of an artificially low property tax, only to know that we are going to have to spend more money in the long run. So I've always, and that also is inclusive of what does it mean for young people? How are we building a city that, for sure is for today, but we need to have our eye on the horizon. We need to move forward with projects that will keep our young people here. Because not only is that a better way to grow a city, but it also happens to increase the tax base if you can keep young people here. So you need to have what other cities have. I mean, young people want to be a part of a global city, and I think we need to continue to grow Saskatoon in a way that's exciting for them, where they can see a future for them and their families.
Awesome. I think we can leave it at that. That's great.
Thank you.